Alright, so this is the unit that we're going to discuss today, which is facilitate the empowerment of people with disability. So under this we have demonstrate commitment to empowerment for people with disability. So identify changes in the legal, political, and social frameworks within which the work is undertaken. So the World Health Organization of 2013 defines disability as an umbrella term covering impairments, activity limitations, and participation restriction. So meaning those people with disability, those people who can no longer participate in full activity, okay, with limitations in their activity, okay, are considered with person with disability. In Australia, the Australia's National Disability Strategy of 2010 to 2020 uses the term people with disability to refer people with all kinds of impairment from birth or required through illness, accident, or the aging process. So that is the reason why we consider those people in the facility, in the nursing home, as people with disability. Okay, because their activity is also limited, their participation in some activities are also restricted. Okay, so that is the reason why we consider them with people with disability, because even though they can still think, okay, they are still in their good sense of mind. Okay, however, their activity is already limited. Their participation in some tasks are already restricted. Okay, therefore they are considered people with disability. Okay, so types of disability are extensive and include but are not limited to acquired brain injury, autism spectrum disorder, okay, cognitive disability, developmental delay, intellectual disability, neurological impairment, physical disability, sensory disability, speech and language disability. So those are the people included in persons with disability. Okay? The history of disability support and services in Australia. Legal, political, and social frameworks. Okay? Under this, we have the Charter of Human Rights, and then the United Nations Convention on the rights of the persons with disabilities. Okay. In Australia, there's also a legislation, okay, included disability discrimination legislation, disability services legislation, disability insurance scheme legislation, okay, and there's also an Australian legislation, health and safety, okay, equal opportunity, and anti-discrimination legislation. So, in equal opportunity, they encourage the persons with disability, okay, to be productive and to be employed. Okay? As long as they are qualified for the positions that they are applying, okay, they will be given a chance to become employed. Okay? That is the good thing here. Privacy legislation, Australian mandatory reporting legislation, and child protection legislation. Again, we have the duty of care. National disability strategies, standards, and policies. Okay? And access and equity policies, service provider strategies, ethical requirements, and dignity of risk. Okay. And then, the social construct is a social mechanism, phenomenon or category created and developed by society, a perception of an individual, group, or idea that is constructed through cultural and social patience. The social construction of disability is the idea that society creates disability by acting in a way that assumes that everyone is fully functioning, able-bodied person, which prevents people with disability from fully functioning in society. This view potentially leads to physical, attitudinal, communication, and social barriers for people with disability, many of whom simply want the opportunity to participate fully in all aspects of life. Okay, the National Disability Strategy of 2010 to 2020 recognizes the barriers and disadvantages faced by people with disability. The strategy recognizes that personal circumstances of people with disability determined their specific needs, priorities, and perspective. Okay. The community attitudes, okay, social justice, and social media of disability. Okay. With regards to reflect on personal values and attitudes regarding disability and knowledge their potential impact when working in disability context, when planning and undertaking work with people with disability, staff need to take into account personal values and attitudes regarding disability because their personal values can directly affect their attitude towards the persons with disability. They're either negatively or positively. Okay. Values are principles, standards, or qualities that an individual or group of people hold in high regard. Okay? Values can influence many of judgments people make as well as impact on the support they give to them. Okay? This is the reason why you are now required to have at least certificate 3, okay, in individual support for you to be able to be employed in the organizations. Because during those years, for the previous decades, okay, when you apply for this type of work, okay, even though you don't have any background on how you will look after those people with disability, okay, you have the chance to be employed. However, because of the high, what do you call this? Because of the increase of incidents of physical abuse, emotional abuse, psychological abuse on people with disability, and it is because of those people who are looking after them, okay, the government now requires for those people who may want to work in this organization, at least they might have the certificate 3 in individual support. So that you have already a foundation. You already learned how to manage those people with disability. Okay? Because if you don't have any knowledge on how you will be handling those type of persons, okay, you might ignore them, okay, you might abuse them. It's either physical, psychological, or emotional. So in this regards, we already violated the rights of the person. Okay? As we said, values can influence many of the judgment people make as well as impact on the support they give to the client. Okay. Because if you don't have any foundation on how you will handle those people with disability, okay, you cannot understand them. Okay, for you to be able to work with them, you need to understand their situation. As I always mention to you, you always need to put your shoes, or you put your feet on the shoes of your residents, to put your feet on the shoes of your patients. That's the only thing that you will be able to understand them. Okay? Attitude are feelings or opinions about something or someone that influence how a person behaves towards that thing or person. Posture and physical behaviors can affect attitude. Avoiding eye contact, turning away from the person with disability, or handling them roughly demonstrates a negative attitude towards working with people with disability. The extent to which a disability results in a barrier to a person's ability to participate in the community is very much a reflection of the attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors of others. Okay, if we cannot accept them, if we cannot understand them, okay, who will be able to understand those people? Okay, so as a carer, you need to show your compassion. You need to show your understanding. Okay, for you to be able to address the needs of those people who are longing for your help. Right? Discriminatory attitudes can result in people with disability. Disability sector values, personal values and attitude, labeling, written and spoken language, categorizing, and nicknames. Appropriate terminology, okay, person with disability, person with high support needs, a disabled person, high or low support needs, and courtesy titles. So, conflicting values. Right? Next, develop and adjust own approaches to facilitate empowerment. Empowerment is the belief that one has power and control in their life, including their disability. Okay. Empowerment is based on the idea that giving people with disability and their carers, family members, skills, resources, authority, opportunity, okay, motivation, as well as holding them responsible and accountable for outcomes of their action, will contribute to their competence and self-worth. Okay? So, make sure when you engage your care to your clients, make the most of the skills that you will be able to give, the understanding that you will be able to share, or the understanding that you will be able to give to your client. Okay? The action, okay? The intervention that you are going to give to your client, make sure that every action that you will give are within the standard of care. At the end of the day, you will be answerable to the action that you have given, okay, to your client. You need to examine yourself. Okay, am I doing the right thing? Did I did the best that I could give to my client? Okay? Did I deliver the best quality that I should that I supposed to give? Okay. This is the only thing that you will be able to assess yourself. Okay? Whether you did the right thing or not. Whether you need to improve yourself or you need to learn more. Okay? Next, Cataneo's model of empowerment sits within a social context and requires people to draw on their community's resources, knowledge, skills, and self-efficacy as they work through the process. Facilitating empowerment. Facilitating means, okay? Facilitating means you will be able to empower, you will be able to encourage, okay, the people with this ability. Okay? And foster human rights. Under this, we have assist the person with disability to understand the rights. We need to help them. We need to educate them. Okay? So that they will be able to understand, they will be able to know that even though they are the person with disability, they need to be equal to others. Whatever the rights we have, they also have the rights. Okay? The purpose of the United Nations Conventions on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities is to promote, protect, and ensure the full of equal enjoyment of all human rights and fundamental freedoms by all people with disabilities, and to promote respect for their inherent dignity. Okay, that is very clear. Okay, so whatever the rights we have, those people with disability, they must also equal to the rights that we have. Okay, persons with disabilities include those who have long-term physical, mental, intellectual, or sensory impairment, which in interaction with various barriers may hinder their full and effective participation in society on an equal basis with others. So if they can no longer participate in the community, okay, because of their impairment, because of their disabilities, as a carer, we should be the one to empower them. We should be the one to encourage them. Okay? And give them hope. Because if we cannot empower them, if we cannot encourage them, then who will be the one to encourage them? Okay? The encouragement must come from their family and the carer itself, because we are the one dealing them 24/7. We are the one in the front line of care. Next, assist the person with disability to understand the rights. Again, the parties to the convention, including Australia, recognize that all persons are equal before and under the law and are entitled without discrimination to the equal protection and equal benefit of the law. Okay. Rights of people with disability established under the UNCRPD. Okay? Health, accommodation, and vocation. And again, education and personal development, community access. That is the reason why when every time you walk in the roads, there's always an access or allotted space for those people with disabilities, especially those people using their electric chair as their vehicle and transport. Okay? Family, advocacy, leisure and recreation, financial security, disability discrimination legislation. Disability services legislation, national standards for disability services, rights-based service delivery, supporting people with disability to understand the rights, advocacy, legal, denying rights, communication techniques. Genetic factors under the delivery services that ensure the rights and needs of the person are upheld in the context of person-centeredness. Okay. Genetic factors, physical trauma, psychological trauma, chronic lifestyle conditions, acquired brain injury, and person-centered approach. So genetic factors, okay, the doctors needs to trace whether they have the genetic hereditary, okay, genes that they may pass through their generation. Okay, so genetic factors, they need to trace whether their genes has they have the abnormal genes that they can pass to the other generation. Okay. Next, active support approach. Okay, strength-based approach, self-advocacy, active listening, attending, following, reflecting, focusing and summarizing use of questions. Okay? And then next is ensure the cultural needs of the persons are identified, accepted, and upheld. Australia has the large percentage of people from culturally and linguistically diverse. Okay. So we have now more than 147 living, 47 coming from different background, coming from different countries, living in Australia. Okay? So that is the reason why Australia has a large percentage of people from culturally and linguistically diverse. Okay? In order to accommodate the cultural needs of diverse clients, workers might need to access specific services such as ethnic health services, interpreter services, cross-cultural contact, and Aboriginal cultural liaison officers. People like to know that their unique characteristics, qualities, cultural practices, and needs are recognized and protected. Some actions or behaviors are culturally determined and are learned from very early years. Okay? Reliable data on CALD disability rates on the difficult to ensure, to source, cultural sensitivity involves respecting and wherever possible, accommodating people's cultural background. Disability services workers who take the time to recognize and cater for individual differences among the people they are supporting shows respect for each person's uniqueness. Showing recognition and respect for the cultural and individual identity of a person has the added benefit of encouraging family members to be involved in their lives. Okay? Staff can ascertain preferences by involving the person and the person's family or an advocate in the process of personal lifestyle planning. When spoken or written English is a significant barrier, interpreters can help worker and clients communicate with one another. Partnerships with family. Okay, so with regards to partnerships and families, this is common. Okay, especially if the client is living in their own place, living in their community. Okay, we need to coordinate to their family members because they are the one knows the client. Okay. We can only get some information if we will have a good relationship with their family. Okay. With regards to when spoken or written English is a significant barriers. Alright. So, in some organization, like for example, in the village that I am working, in Scalabrini, okay, most of our clients there are Italian. So when they become dementia or demented, okay, they only remember the language that they have learned during their formative years. Okay, and they can no longer speak English. So as a non-Italian speaker, it's hard for us, for the nurses, to address the needs of our residents. Okay, because we cannot speak their language. Okay, it's a burden for the resident, for the elderly, because they want something, they need something. However, because we cannot speak their language, it's hard for us to address their needs. And if we cannot address the needs of our residents, our residents become agitated. Okay, they become hysterical, they become aggressive, they become violent. So what the management did, they employed a person who can speak Italian so that someone will be able to interpret if the clients want to say something, if the client needs something. And for us as a nurses who will be working with them, it's easy for me to convey the message that we want to address to our residents, because there is someone who can interpret the thoughts that we want to convey to our listener, to our residents. Okay. And next, identify breaches of human rights and respond and report according to organization procedures. Right. Under this, we have human rights. Human rights are a set of universally agreed standards for how people should be treated by each other and by governments. Human rights are intrinsic to every person by virtue of their status as a human being. To violate a person's human right is to deny a person the ability to enjoy or attain a right. Okay? It is a threat that person as though they were not a human being. Okay. So all of us has the right to enjoy ourselves. All of us has the right to participate and be involved in the community, regardless of your status, regardless of your disability. Okay? Alright. Next, a breach of human right is a failure to do what is required by a law, an agreement of, or a duty. People with disability are provided with avenues and opportunities to exercise their rights and independence. Okay? Disability discrimination laws make disability discrimination unlawful and aim to promote equal opportunity and access for people with disability. So that is the reason why in some ads for job hunting, on the bottom they write there, okay, Aboriginal and persons with disability are encouraged to apply. Okay? So that if you are qualified for the position based on your experience and educational background, okay, you will be able to have a chance to be employed because you are qualified, because in Australia they have the legislation which call equal opportunity for all the citizens. As part of the role, the Australian Human Rights Commission conduct public inquiries, okay, negotiates disability guidelines and standards, supports organizations to develop disability action plans, and runs community education programs. Okay. A complaint can be made in any language, and the commission can also help the person write out the complaint if they need assistance. After a letter of grievance is accepted as a complaint, the commission will assess how much investigation is required. The health or health services commissioner in each state, the territory, has a mandate to deal with complaints about the provision of health services and community services for people, and complaints about contraventions of the privacy principles of the consumer rights of access to their health records under current legislation. Okay, next is identify breaches of human rights and respond and report according to organization procedures. So under this, we have the commissioner's role in each state, territory varies. Complaints must be submitted in writing in order for the commissioner to act on it. The Office of the Ombudsman in some states, territories has a range of responsibilities in relation to complaints about community and disability services, okay, disability advocacy groups, and abuse, neglect, and exploitation of people with disability are particularly distressing forms of mistreatment that can result in physical, mental, or emotional harm and sometimes death. People with disability are considered one of the groups most vulnerable to abuse, neglect, and exploitation. Because most of these people, okay, it's hard for them to speak up. It's hard for them to tell the story of what is happening to them. Okay. Some people might ignore them because they are mentally incapacitated, mentally disordered. Okay. Some people might ignore them because they might be dementia. Okay. Some people might ignore them because they cannot talk, they cannot speak. Okay. Some people might not believe them because of mental disability. Okay. That is the reason why they are considered as most vulnerable in terms of abuse, neglect, and exploitation. Individual focus that influence risk for abuse, segregated service environment, overcrowding, incompatibility between residents and or workers, and high staff turnover can increase the risk of abuse of people with disability in service facilities. Okay? Because if there is a fast turnover of employment, okay, the new staff who will work or who will be able to deliver service for the persons with disability don't have an idea on how these persons behave. Okay? And next, mental or physical ailment might make them more trying companions for the people who lived with them, thus making them more at risk of abuse by family members or carers. Family characteristics such as social isolation, inability to copy with stress, lack of support, history of family violence, inadequate housing, substance abuse, and negative attitude towards people with disability are also risk factors. Okay, identify indications of possible abuse and or neglect and report according to organization procedure. So type of abuse, we have the physical abuse, emotional, psychological abuse, sexual abuse, chemical abuse, neglect or abandonment, financial exploitation. Okay. For chemical abuse, for example, the person with mental disability is getting hysterical, is getting violent. So what